You did everything right. You acclimated the fish, you tested the water, you followed every instruction. The fish was dead in 12 days. And here is what the store will never tell you. That fish was already dying when you bought it. Most people think the story of a PetSmart fish starts at the store. It doesn't. By the time that fish is floating in the display tank under fluorescent lights, waiting for you to point at it, it has already survived one of the most physiologically traumatic journeys in the animal trade. A journey that most fish do not survive in full health. A journey that the industry has no financial incentive to improve, because the fish that die during it are already paid for by the retailer, and the fish that die in your tank after it are a repeat purchase waiting to happen. Today, I am going to show you exactly what happens to a fish between the farm it was born on and the tank it ends up in. I am going to show you the specific biological damage that journey causes, and why it makes certain fish almost guaranteed to die within the first 30 days, regardless of what you do. And then I am going to show you exactly how to identify which fish in that tank have survived the journey intact, and which ones are already running out of time before you even get them home. That identification test is the most valuable thing in this video. I am saving it for the end, because once you know what to look for, you will never buy a doomed fish again. Subscribe right now if you want aquarium content that tells you what the industry doesn't. Let's follow the fish. Before the journey, one piece of biology that makes everything else make sense. Fish do not experience stress the way mammals do. Mammals have a stress response that activates and then resolves. You feel fear, adrenaline spikes, the threat passes, your body recovers. Fish experience chronic stress differently. When cortisol, the primary fish stress hormone, stays elevated for extended periods, it does not just create discomfort, it actively suppresses the immune system, depletes energy reserves, damages gill tissue, makes the fish dramatically more susceptible to every pathogen and parasite in the water. A fish that has been under chronic stress for 2 weeks is not just tired. It is immunologically compromised, physiologically depleted, and it is living in your tank, looking healthy, while its body is quietly losing the ability to fight off what is already there. Keep that in mind through everything I am about to show you. The majority of freshwater aquarium fish sold in the United States come from one of 3 places. Large commercial fish farms in Southeast Asia, primarily Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia, which produce the vast majority of ornamental fish exported globally. Aquaculture operations in Florida, particularly in the Homestead area, which supply a significant portion of the domestic market. And a smaller volume of wild-caught fish from South American and African river systems. On a commercial fish farm, fish are raised in high-density conditions. Many thousands of fish in relatively contained water systems. The water quality is managed to keep fish alive and growing at scale, not to produce the optimal health and immune function of each individual fish. This is not malice, it is math. Optimizing individual health at scale is not economically viable in a commodity market where a neon tetra wholesales for cents. The fish that leave the farm are generally healthy enough by the standards of commercial aquaculture. But they have been living in high-density, moderate stress conditions since birth. Their cortisol baseline is higher than a wild fish of the same species. Their immune reserves are not at peak. They are healthy enough to survive. They are not at their biological best. And the worst of the journey has not started yet. Export fish are packed for shipping using a standardized method. A fixed number of fish in a fixed volume of water in a sealed plastic bag. Oxygen pumped in above the water. The bag heat-sealed. Multiple bags packed into an insulated box. The box loaded onto a cargo flight. The transit time from a Southeast Asian farm to a US distribution facility, including domestic connecting flights, typically runs between 24 and 48 hours. During that time, your fish is in a sealed environment with finite oxygen, accumulating its own waste directly into the water it is breathing. Ammonia from fish waste builds in the bag water. The longer the transit, the higher the ammonia exposure. Temperature fluctuates as the bag moves through loading bays, cargo holds, tarmac environments at different ambient temperatures. The fish cannot feed. It is in total darkness. It is surrounded by other fish of the same species in a space far smaller than anything it has ever occupied. Every element of this environment is a biological stressor. By the time that box is opened at a distribution facility, the fish inside have been under continuous compound stress for up to 48 hours. Their cortisol levels are significantly elevated. Their immune function is measurably suppressed. And the journey is not over. Fish arriving from international shipments go to regional distribution centers, operated by wholesalers like Quality Marine, Seagrass Farms, or the in-house distribution networks of large retail chains. Here, fish are unpacked, inspected, and placed into holding tanks for what the industry calls recovery time. This is typically 24 to 72 hours. During recovery, the fish are fed. Water quality is maintained. Deaths from the shipment are recorded. And, this is important, the mortality rate during and immediately after shipping is already calculated into the wholesale pricing model. Expected losses are already built into the cost of doing business. After recovery, the fish are sorted again. The healthy survivors are packed for the next leg of the journey, to regional distribution hubs and then to individual store locations. This means some fish make 2 shipping journeys before they ever reach a store tank. Some make 3. Here is a part of this story that most people never think about. The store tank is not a recovery environment. It is a sales environment. The fish in that display tank are sharing water with dozens of other fish of multiple species, often with a connected or partially shared filtration system. New fish arrive regularly, introducing whatever pathogens they picked up during shipping or from the farms they came from. The stress of shipping has already suppressed the immune systems of the fish in those tanks. A fish with a suppressed immune system in shared water with new fish arriving continuously in high-density stocking conditions is in an environment with extremely high disease transmission risk. Ichthyophthirius multifilius is present in almost every retail fish tank in existence. Not necessarily at outbreak levels, but present. A healthy fish with a competent immune system can resist Ich exposure indefinitely. A stressed, immunocompromised fish, the one that has just been through 48 hours of shipping and 2 or 3 handling events, cannot. Colonaris, a bacterial infection that causes white or gray patches on the body and fins, is endemic in commercial fish supply chains. It progresses rapidly in stressed fish. It can kill within days of symptom onset in severely compromised individuals. Velvet, Udinium, is another common retail tank pathogen that thrives when fish immune function is low. The fish in that tank is not just stressed from shipping. It is potentially already infected. And it looks completely normal. Because the symptoms of these infections appear only after the fish has been in your tank for 7 to 14 days, when the pathogens complete their life cycles and emerge at scale from a fish whose immune system has been fighting them since before it left the store. This is why fish die in their second week in a new tank, not their first. The fish looked fine. You did everything right. The disease was already there. 4 stages of the journey covered: the farm, the export, the distribution, the store. Before I show you how to identify which fish survived this journey intact and which ones are already running out of time, subscribe right now if you haven't. The next video is the complete beginner fish selection guide. Every species at every experience level with the exact tank requirements for each one. That video combined with this one gives you both the system and the tools. Subscribe, it drops soon. Here is where the story changes. Because everything I've just described, the shipping stress, the immune suppression, the endemic pathogens, is real. And it affects every fish in that store tank, but not equally. Some fish in that tank are in significantly better condition than others. Some survived the journey with their immune function largely intact. Some are carrying pathogen loads that are already too high to overcome in a new tank environment. And some are in the critical window, compromised but recoverable if they get into a stable, unstressed environment quickly enough. The difference between buying a fish that will thrive and buying one that will die in 12 days is not luck. It is observation. And there are 6 specific things you can observe in a store tank in about 60 seconds that tell you which fish belong in which category. Test 1. Observe the group behavior. Healthy, recently stable fish school loosely together but move with purpose. They feed actively when food is present. They respond to movement outside the tank. Fish that are hanging at the surface together, particularly if they are oriented with their noses up, are oxygen-seeking. This indicates either poor water quality in the display tank or gill damage from ich or flukes. Either way, those fish are compromised. Fish that are hiding at the back, motionless or pressed into corners are showing stress behavior, not shyness, active stress. Their cortisol is elevated. Their immune response is already engaged. Test 2. Look at the fins. Healthy fins are held open and relaxed. Clamped fins, held tight against the body, folded rather than extended, are one of the clearest signs of bacterial infection or severe stress in fish. Any fish with clamped fins is a fish already fighting something. Also look for fin edges. Ragged, fraying edges on any fin indicate fin rot, a bacterial infection that is extremely common in stressed retail fish and extremely contagious in a new tank. Test 3. Check the body surface. This one requires looking more carefully than most buyers do. Small white spots, smaller than a grain of salt, on the fins and body are ich. Each spot is a parasite embedded in the fish's skin. In a store tank with low pathogen pressure, this may look like a minor issue. In a new, uncycled or stressed tank at home, it will explode into a full outbreak within days. A dusty gold or rust-colored coating on the body, particularly visible in good light on dark-colored fish, is velvet. It is harder to see than ich, but significantly more lethal and significantly faster moving. Any fish with visible spots or unusual surface texture should not leave the store in your bag. Test 4. Watch the breathing. Count gill movements in a fish you are considering. A relaxed, healthy fish breathes at a relatively slow, even rate. Rapid gill movement, visibly faster than other fish in the same tank, indicates either low oxygen, gill damage, or active pathogen load on the gill tissue. Gill flukes, microscopic parasites on the gill surface, cause exactly this rapid breathing pattern and are extremely common in shipped fish. They are invisible to the naked eye. Rapid breathing is the only observable sign. Test 5. Look at the other fish in the same tank. This is the most important one. And the one most buyers never do. Before you ask for the fish you want, look at every other fish in that same tank. One dead fish in the tank, particularly a fresh death, not a skeleton, is a red flag. It means something in that tank killed recently. Whatever it was is still in the water. Multiple fish with visible symptoms, even if the fish you want looks healthy, means the disease is present in that tank water. The fish you want has been exposed. Its immune status determines whether it is already infected. Ask the employee when fish were last added to that tank. If new fish arrived in the last 48 hours, the existing fish have just been re-exposed to whatever the new arrivals brought. Pass. Come back in a week. Test 6. The feeding response. If the store is doing a feeding, watch which fish eat aggressively and which do not respond. A healthy fish eats. A compromised fish does not. Fish that ignore food in a store tank are fish whose appetite has been suppressed by stress, disease, or both. They are not being picky. They are unwell. Ask an employee to feed the tank if you are seriously considering buying. You do not need many fish to eat. You need the specific fish you want to eat, actively from the surface or midwater, competing for food. A fish that eats in front of you at the store is a fish with enough reserve to still compete for resources. That is the fish you want. Here is the final piece of this system that most beginners skip. Even a fish that passes every one of those 6 observation tests should go into a quarantine tank before it touches your display tank. Not because the observation tests failed, because the observation tests tell you the fish is healthy enough to survive the journey home. They do not tell you the fish is carrying nothing. A quarantine tank does not need to be impressive. A 10-gallon tank with a cycled sponge filter, a heater, and a hiding spot is enough. The sponge filter should be kept running in your display tank between quarantine uses, so it is always cycled and ready. New fish go into quarantine for a minimum of 2 weeks, ideally 4. During that time, you observe. You look for the symptoms that were not visible at the store. The Ich outbreak on day 7. The bacterial lesion on day 12. The velvet shimmer that only becomes visible when the fish is under a flashlight at an angle. If you see symptoms, you treat in quarantine. Your display tank stays safe. Your existing fish stay healthy. If you see nothing in 4 weeks, the fish is genuinely clear. It goes into your display tank carrying nothing that can harm what is already there. This is the single most impactful practice in fish keeping. And it is almost never mentioned at the point of sale, because it requires a second tank, a second filter, and a second set of equipment that the store would be happy to sell you separately. But that removes the excuse to replace fish that die in your display tank. The quarantine tank is the thing the industry has no incentive to teach you. Here is what this journey actually costs. A fish born on a farm in Thailand or Singapore. Raised in high-density commercial conditions. Packed into a bag for 36 to 48 hours of international shipping. Run through a distribution facility for 24 to 72 hours. Packed again. Shipped to a regional hub, driven to a store, placed in a shared display tank already occupied by fish from a dozen other shipments. By the time you point at it and say, "I'll take that one," that fish has been under continuous compound biological stress for days. Its immune system has been suppressed by cortisol for longer than many fish infections take to become symptomatic. It is not your fault when that fish dies in 2 weeks. But it was preventable. The 6 observation tests take 60 seconds. The quarantine tank costs $30 to set up once and protects every fish you ever buy for the life of your hobby. And the fish that pass both, the ones that eat in the store tank and show no symptoms in 4 weeks of quarantine, those fish go into your display tank healthy, stable, and ready to thrive. Not all fish make it through the commercial supply chain with their biology intact. But now you know how to find the ones that did.
3 things to do before your next fish purchase. First, spend 60 seconds at the tank before you point at anything. Use the 6 observation tests. Look at the group behavior. Look at the fins. Look at the body surface. Watch the breathing. Check the rest of the tank. Ask them to feed. Second, if any fish in that tank has visible symptoms, walk away. Come back in 10 days. The tank will have either resolved the issue or revealed a systemic problem. Either way, you have better information. Third, set up a quarantine tank. 10 gallons, sponge filter, heater. Run the sponge filter in your display tank between uses so it stays cycled. That 3-step routine is the difference between the fish keeper whose fish keep dying and the fish keeper who loses fish occasionally and understands exactly why. The complete fish selection guide. Every species worth buying, every species worth avoiding, with the specific biology behind each recommendation, is linked in the description below alongside our earlier PetSmart video. Subscribe right now if you haven't, because the next video is the complete quarantine setup guide. Exactly how to build and maintain a quarantine system for under $30 that protects every fish you ever buy. And drop a comment below. Have you ever bought a fish that died within the first 30 days despite doing everything right? Because I think this comment section is about to become the largest collection of "I finally understand what happened" moments this channel has ever produced.